about to play its way out of a #1 seed? Have the OSU Cowboys played their way into the dance? And will Courtney Paris end up paying for her senior night speech? From the Dodge Sports Desk, this is the Press Row. I'm sports editor Mike Sherman, and my guests, as always, are columnist Jenny Carlson, columnist John Rohde, and columnist Barry Trammell. Barry, let's start with you. Wasn't it just a week ago we were fitting the OU Sooners basketball team for a crown?
Well, not much more than a week ago, but we didn't know that their guards would do a disappearing act. And they've been not playing well, and they played awful last night in Missouri. And, it's been a different guy. None of them have been playing well the last 2 or 3 games, but it's been a different guy that's gotten in the doghouse. And if Willie Warren and Austin Johnson and Tony Crocker don't play well, the Griffin brothers can't do it all by themselves.
Yeah, that's been the thing that has been really great about this team for the first 3 months of the year or whatever, is that it's always been somebody. Even when Willie Warren was off, Tony Crocker would pick up the slack, or Austin Johnson. And to see all those guys struggling right now, I think is probably one of the biggest fears that Jeff Capel had all along, is that there'd be a time when they would all fall apart. And they've got to recapture what they had before, because right now they look like a good team, but they're definitely not the championship team that they were just a couple weeks ago.
Your question's outdated. They have played their way out of it. Now they got to play their way back into a #1 seed. They got to run the table. Look, if you're going to beat Missouri, you got to bring your guards, and they didn't bring them last night. I kind of saw that one coming, because if you take away Austin Johnson's numbers, OU as a team has more turnovers than assists. That's a recipe for disaster on senior night in Columbia when Missouri playing the way they're playing right now.
But we never thought we would be taking away Austin Johnson's numbers. In fact, early in the Big 12 season, we were hailing the metamorphosis of Austin Johnson, how he'd become a steady hand, a big-time player. He went up to Iowa State and made a big shot. What's happened to Austin Johnson?
I got to think his physical limitations are starting to wear on him. He's got the chronic back problems. Every guard looked like they were playing in quicksand last night. So Johnson just didn't seem to be much into the game, and passes were short, and aggression was little. I think maybe his is more physical than anything else.
It seemed like to me that those guys got a little out of sorts when Blake Griffin went out. You just saw Austin Johnson, and I think there may be something to the idea of him being injured a little bit, but you saw Austin Johnson and Tony Crocker get essentially benched late in the Kansas game because they were just trying to do so much. And you almost wonder if maybe that didn't get them off their game and their rhythm, and they just haven't recaptured it, because I think Austin Johnson was playing hurt before, but clearly they were different players when Blake Griffin wasn't out there. And now that he's back, they haven't gotten back that swagger that they had before, and that's really hurting them right now.
It's like John Halsey wrote today, there's no asterisk by last night's game. They were at full strength. They've lost 3 out of 4. If Texas Tech can hit some open jumpers, they might have lost 4 straight. They got to figure it out. And Bedlam is either the perfect time to figure it out or the worst time to figure it out.
The NCAA seeding folks, they like to look at the last 10, which is not going to look really great for the Sooners. But last night, Jeff Capel says, hey, there's plenty of time for us to correct this. The problem is correcting includes sort of getting over the discipline humps with Juan Patillo and Willie Warren. What I think is Willie Warren ever going to come back to the player he was? I mean, that seems to be the biggest problem they face right now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if his is some sort of discipline problem, some sort of frustration problem, or it's possible he just hit the freshman wall. That sometimes you see guys hit, not always, but sometimes. You're right. He needs to play well, because he was great in those 2 games when Blake was out. And then the last 2 games, he's been a no-show.
I thought he was as good as anybody on the floor against Kansas. I mean, I really thought if you took that game, you could say, hey, this guy deserves to be in the Player of the Year conversation in the conference. Blake Griffin is obviously that guy, but you start to think, why couldn't he be in the conversation too? He was playing that well. To see it turn so quick is just, I mean, maybe that's a product of youth, but that's been pretty dramatic to see how quickly he went from so great to just almost ineffective entirely for these guys.
I had him first team all-conference. He's not there anymore. He's played his way off of it.
Speaking of dramatic changes, John, let's talk about the Oklahoma State Cowboys. As the Sooners' fortunes have declined, the Cowboys have soared. They're winning 6 straight. They go into the Bedlam game looking like a different team. Is OSU now a cinch for the NCAA tournament?
No. They're in great shape. They've done what they had to do. They're in great shape if they play respectably or win, obviously, on Saturday. But if they get blown out Saturday and they get blown out, say, to Missouri or Nebraska in the first round of the Big 12 tournament, the question marks pops right back up. They gotta hold serve. They gotta split their next 2 games to be in, I think.
Yeah, I think they could be in already, but I think if you want to be certain, you don't want to get blown out in Norman, and then you want to win at least 1 game in the Big 12 tournament. Chances are good they're going to play that first day, so you're going to have an 11 or 12 type of seed that you're going to play. And if you lose that game, that looks really, really bad. But if they win one of these last 2 or 2 of their last 3, however that shakes down, then their last 10 still looks really nice because you've got this 6-game winning streak included in there. You've got a win against Texas in there. I think they could potentially already have a resume that gets them in, but there's so many teams on the bubble this year. There's just not many for sures. So you can't mess around. You can't give the committee any reason to think, let's leave them out. You got to keep winning and winning big games.
I think OSU's RPI is going to be in the 20s come Sunday night. And you don't see many teams in the 20s get left out of the NCAA tournament from a major conference. It happened to Barry Hinson at Missouri State a few years ago. Happens occasionally to the mid-majors, not very often to the big boys. So I think OSU's in. The one thing that could muddle it is if A&M beats Missouri Saturday in College Station, which could happen. That would put 6 teams from the Big 12 in NCAA contention. I don't care what anybody says. The committee does care and does look at how many from each conference they put in. They can say they don't want to, all they want to, but I know they do. They may say that's too many from the Big 12 if there's 6. OSU might be the odd team out under that scenario, but to me that's the only way that could get OSU out, as long as they beat Tech or Colorado or whoever they might play in Oklahoma City.
Real quick, if they beat OU on Saturday and Kansas beats Texas, OSU gets the first day off. They're the fourth seed. They would be 4th straight up if A&M beats Missouri and all those other things. So so the 4th seed is still out there, and a day off. If they get a day off, I think that clinches it for them.
And that's an interesting question, though, because then you're possibly playing number 5, and that's no automatic win at all. That could be Texas. That could be K-State. If they're the 5 or the 6, you've almost got a for sure win. That's kind of an interesting question there. Do you want to play that first day and maybe have a slam dunk win even though it's not a great opponent, or would you rather be off? I don't know. It'll be an interesting thing to see how it all shakes down. A lot of ball left to play.
Last thing about Oklahoma State, just taking in the ebbs and flows of a season, the Cowboys bench Obi Manello and get a lot better. Who saw that coming? John?
Well, I saw Obi driving his head coach nuts, truthfully. And it doesn't take much to drive Travis Ford. But I thought, we talked about this last week, I thought what turned the season around for him is Travis Ford calling out Terrell Harris and James Anderson, and both those guys responded. That, to me, is what turned the season around, not benching Obi.
Isn't he calling out Obi a little bit? I mean, this guy was his best rebounder, and I guess he says we don't need rebounds or we don't need Obi.
Well, it is. I tend to think it's a little bit of a coincidence that Obi's playing time has gone down as OSU's fortunes have gone up. I think OSU's fortunes have gone up with this turn of the schedule. I mean, they've won games. I think they were favored in all 6 games that they won. Obi's a good player. He's not as good as he was. He's in the doghouse. But I think if this team's going to do any damage beyond just making the NCAA tournament, win a game there, they're going to need Obi Manella to play well. Because let me tell you what, as valiant as Marshall Moses has been in this 6-game winning streak, you can't expect him to get 15 rebounds in an NCAA tournament game against 6'9", 6'10" centers. Let's see how many he gets Saturday with the Griffins playing against him. So they're going to need Obi in there muscling around. So my recommendation is, try to ease Obi back into the rotation a little bit more.
It's been impressive what Byron Eaton has done. That's a guy that, and you mentioned, I think, a second ago. But he, for seniors, for him and Terrell, John, as you mentioned, those 2 guys came here, wanted to do great things, expected to do great things, and now they have a chance to leave this program in a nice place, to go to an NCAA tournament. And you see Byron Eaton stepping forward and doing what he needs to do. Came up big the other night, I thought, in that game against Kansas State. So, that is another piece to the puzzle. But all of their pieces, they have so very few that they use. They all have to be good. You have to have Marshall Moses. You have to have Obi Manello. You have to have Byron Eaton, or they're going to be in trouble, not only this weekend, but in the next couple weeks.